Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
SunBelt podcast. Guys, it was a great weekend this past weekend, mostly because Coastal Carolina proved us all wrong and got a win on the road in Atlanta.
They woke
Isn't that what
up.
you thought I was going to say?
You know what? I kind of thought maybe you were going to lean towards another game that's a little closer to your heart. But you know what? I kind of like this sort of ambivalent, agnostic version of Tibbs, just sort of looking at the SunBelt as a whole and seeing good in places that normally you wouldn't see it. So good for you. I'm happy. You've become mature. You're a mature man. I appreciate that.
You know what was even better than that?
What's
South
that?
Alabama beats Louisiana Tech, and Tech had 4 interceptions. Jags hold the Dogs to only 57 yards rushing. Is that better? Is that what you wanted?
There's the old pettiness that I like from Tibbs. The seething hatred for Louisiana Tech finally bubbling to the surface. That's what I was waiting for. And yes, that was
the only thing that happened in Louisiana, right?
That was it. Well, that was actually in Mobile, but yeah. That's
that
it.
Was the news.
Right.
That was the news out of Louisiana this weekend, I believe.
Great show. We'll do it again next week.
Close it off. It's gone off the rails.
The other big game.
What?
The other big game to me that was the biggest surprise, honestly, over the weekend was Southern Miss going to Tulane and getting that win and breaking the bell. Jeremy, that's why we can't have a nice rivalry trophy.
I didn't even know the bell was broken, but I do know that was a great win for Southern Miss, but also a great win for the SunBelt. I mean, it's always good to grab one from the AAC. And Tulane's not a bad team. Tulane was coming in hot. So great win for Will Hall, first-year head coach. Congratulations. I'm sorry to hear about the bell. What happened to the bell?
I don't know. The damn Southern Miss people were so excited they broke it.
Jeez. That's why you can't have nice things in Hattiesburg. There's always just some rowdy hillbilly out there breaking bells. Just keep bells away from those guys from now on. You've lost your bell privileges, Hattiesburg.
I forget the name of the trophy for Auburn, Alabama, but I can assure you that it is held together by duct tape.
Hey, was there another big game? I don't know. Something that happened on the East Coast, something that looked like it was going one way, Shane. And it had me thinking, all right, well, this is kind of how it was supposed to happen. And then something totally different happened.
Yeah, it was Old Dominion 29, Arkansas State 26.
Yeah, I mean, once again, Arkansas State had a fourth quarter lead, let it slip away. Arkansas State quite legitimately should be 3-1 right now after allowing 2 fourth quarter leads slip away. But hey, you know what? That's how it goes. That's how it goes in the SunBelt. So really, that's all that happened this week, right? There's the Southern Miss, there's Old Dominion, there's South Alabama. Was there something else? Something else? Oh, here's another thing. Here's a cautionary tale about beating a top 10 team and then maybe not focusing for your opponents coming up. And that's Marshall. What the hell is happening to Marshall right now? I mean, is there a curse for beating Notre Dame? Is it the Notre Dame curse? Oh my God, what's happening to the Herd?
That is a big question. I haven't really gotten a chance to watch those games with Marshall, but fairly shocking that they lost 2 in a row.
Yeah,
especially the Bowling Green game. I'm not that surprised that they had trouble with Troy, but you kind of wonder when's Marshall going to come back to what we thought they were going to be.
Marshall, after Notre Dame, we're like, oh, wow, they're the power in the East. Those guys are going to come just waltzing through. There's no stopping the Thundering Herd. Now we got, the West earning a win from the East, thanks to Troy. And then that Bowling Green thing, you're right. I can't really pinpoint it. The defense seems fine with the Herd. That offense doesn't seem to be going anywhere.
Don't discount the Trojans and Gunnar Watson, Carlton Marshall getting the SunBelt Conference career tackling record, and he's only 71 away from breaking the NCAA record. Don't discount the Trojans.
Carlton Marshall is the real deal. I'm not sold on Gunnar Watson. I'm sorry. I feel like he's still trying to have a really great game to make things interesting. But I will tell you what, that Troy defense, that's tough.
Wait, you're not sold on Gunnar Watson, but you are sold on a quarterback whose name you don't even know, and a team that surrendered 29 second half points.
No, who? What are you talking about?
Your Red Wolves.
Are you? What are you implying? That I'm sold on James Blackman? Oh, James Blackman, because I forgot his name at the SunBelt Media Days. Yeah. You know what? I'm still 100% behind James Blackman. I think he's going to have some good games. Maybe hasn't had his best game yet. But hey, maybe we should talk about the battle of the Chandlers.
No.
All right.
Not even worth discussing.
Why, after all of the shit that was talked on Twitter, on podcasts, in interviews,
Yeah. Okay.
should we give them the time of day to let them stoke over them living in the past of 2020 with a team that quit? And so it was like an inter-squad scrimmage.
Wow.
And forgetting that it's 2022 and a completely new team.
This is
Forgetting
really
that
hard.
last year you only won the game by 6 points
Oh my God.
and had to hold on for that win. Let's not worry about that.
Nice comeback, come from behind win. What do we even know about the Warhawks? They get completely blown out by Texas, completely blown out by Alabama. We don't really know.
I would not say completely blown out by Texas. I would say it got beat by Texas.
Got soundly defeated by Texas. How's about that? I mean, 55-10. That's pretty good beating.
We had that conversation back then, Jeremy. Don't live in the past.
That's right. Don't live in the past. What I'm saying is, you just don't know really who the real Warhawks are.
You will find out this week when we snap
I'll tell you
our
who the real
21-year
Warhawks-
drought in Jonesboro.
All right, we'll talk about
Tell
that
you who the
later.
real Warhawks
Second.
are.
What?
I'll tell you
Shane?
who the real Warhawks are. They are a great team to watch on your phone when you're sitting in the passenger seat of a car, driving across the border from North Carolina to Virginia in the middle of the night. On the East Coast, it was the middle of the night.
Now, why were you in your car for that?
I went to go see the leaves in Boone. Yeah, up in the
Hmm.
mountains, seeing the leaves change. That time
Were
of
you
year.
just there for the fall foliage, or was something else happen? Something so extraordinary that it has opened wide the doors of perception to the Sunbelt
And the Eastern race.
and the Eastern race. Yes. Can you explain what the hell happened in Boone with James Madison?
We saw the best and the worst of both teams from JMU and App State in that game at different times. And it wound up being that JMU got a little more of their best and came out on top. I wouldn't say either team played all that great at times, but it ended up being like a really entertaining game, and it really opened some eyes as to maybe what's going on in the East. It's going to be wild.
The Dukes shut out Appalachian State in Boone for the second half. That doesn't ever happen. That was crazy.
JMU's defense looks pretty incredible here to start the season. I mean, I don't know exactly what happened during the second quarter when App State put up 28 points in the second quarter, all 28 of their points
Yeah.
in the second quarter. But once JMU started getting some pressure on Chase Bryce, it was a completely different story.
Well, I'll tell you what, Shane, I was pretty smug with myself when I saw the halftime score. I was like, yes, we got JMU, and they've had a couple of good games, but they're still they still have some time to catch up to the Sunbelt Heat, right? They're going to need a couple years to really ingrain themselves in the conference. And then you take out Appalachian State. That's nuts.
It was pretty incredible to see. And it was really it was a slow burn in that second half. It really wasn't until the late interception that it dawned on me that JMU was going to win that game.
I don't think
it was like,
Appalachian.
okay, it was like, okay, they made it respectable now. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, JMU's actually going to win.
I don't think Appalachian State ever really thought they were going to lose the game. I think that even with 1 minute left on the clock, they were like, wait, oh my God, this is really happening. You know, I don't think they even saw
And
that.
so when you look at that, though, Jeremy, sorry, I didn't mean to walk all over your.
Hey, whatever. You just go ahead, steal my thunder, walk on my moment. You go ahead.
Hey, it's game week. I'm allowed to walk all over your Red Wolves. See, I'm stoking that rivalry. How about that? We'll talk rivalries later on.
When we get to that game later, I will not say a word. That's just you two.
It's just us screaming at each other. It's
There goes trying to keep the episode short.
well, speaking of short,
my question for you, though.
okay.
My question for you, though.
All right.
Was JMU that much better? Was JMU better than App on Saturday? Is App State done and overrated, or did App State just overlook JMU?
There might be combinations of things. I think JMU is better than anybody thought. When you start looking at,
I agree with that.
the way they are, the way they play on both lines, that they're going to be tough to beat this year. I'm not saying they won't get beat this year, but they're going to be tough for teams to beat because they're so good on both the offensive and defensive lines. It's just going to be really tough to stop them at times.
I think that we underestimated JMU, and I think that we should have remembered Georgia Southern and how they came in, ran straight through the league, not eligible for the title, but still able to claim it outright for the regular season and just not go into the postseason. We should have remembered that and known that JMU was just going to come in and run over everybody.
I said at the beginning of the season, though, 2014 SunBelt is not the same as 2022 SunBelt.
Yeah.
JMU still has a lot of good teams to play, but
No, we live in the past around here, Shane.
okay. Oh yeah. Okay. But I think that's maybe even what's most impressive is as impressive as it was for Georgia Southern to come in and win the league right away. They won the worst conference in the country at the time, and the Sun Belt's a long ways from being the worst at this point. And that's
second to worst. I would still put them ahead to MAC.
That's what's most surprising to me.
Houston Baptist Christian University traveling to San Marcos and getting shut out. I don't think anybody was surprised by that at all. I do think that it was a little surprising, quite honestly, that the Bobcat defense surrendered 142 yards. I really thought they were going to keep it under 100.
I don't know. I don't know anything about Houston Christian University. I know that they're probably not a very great football team. I do know that Texas State really needed that boost to see Lane Hatcher throw a bunch of touchdowns, to see the defense shut down an offense. I think the fans really need to see that. I'm seeing a little moxie now among some of the Texas State faithful online. And I think they just kind of needed that, Tibbs. You beat FIU and you think, okay, FIU, you see that they get beat 73-0 in week 4. So now you know that FIU game wasn't exactly a marquee win. You beat the FCS team. It takes care of business. You feel like you've been reset, recharged. Now you get JMU, which is probably a huge order. But that seems like the kind of game Texas State ends up winning, right?
Yeah, I mean, crazier things have happened. I would definitely have liked to have this game in San Marcos to be able to give the Bobcats a little bit more of an edge. But yeah, it's a tall order, but it is what it is. It's part of the Sun Belt. It's what the Sun Belt's become, and a game that they're going to have to win if they ever want to compete in the belt.
Absolutely. Okay, we got a guest in the green room, and you're not going to believe who it is because it's somebody that we've wanted for a long time. Our schedules kind of get crossed. We couldn't get him in. Now he's in, eating our Cheetos, drinking our beer. Tibbs, do you know who this guy is? Can you take a guess?
Ronaldo.
No, Shane. I need a guess from you.
Conan O'Brien.
No, it's none of those things. but it's like the Conan O'Brien of the SunBelt. That's actually a pretty good guess. He is a host of the Win Now or Get Bent podcast, a podcast it's not a rival of ours. It's sort of more of a contemporary. They cover Texas State Bobcats. Keff Ciardello is on the show. He's going to talk a little bit, I hope, about laying. Oh God!
He
I
gets
can't
choked up knowing
I can't
that
say his
Lane
name.
Hatcher
because
left
You
him.
can't even say the name.
I can't do it. It was such a bummer. But we're going to talk a little bit about the man who shall not be named. We're going to talk a little bit about the big win that occurred over this weekend, and we're going to talk about the future of the Bobcats. Keith, welcome to the show. Kev, welcome to the show.
Thank you. And it's a huge letdown after Ronaldo and Conan O'Brien.
No.
And now it's just me. Sorry, everybody.
What would we talk
but
to
here I am.
Geraldo about?
I mean,
we wouldn't have anything to say.
he knows the belt. Everybody knows the belt these days.
That's
Everybody does.
absolutely right, and that's actually a good question to start with. You know, with the Sun Belt expanding to 14 teams, you know, guys like Arkansas State and Texas State, in a way, were kind of shut out of the rivalry angle. You know, everybody seemed to get new rivals, and everybody's kind of chumming up and pointing fingers and burning effigies. But we're still just kind of on our own. What do you think about that?
I'm here for it. I'm here for. I think I know where you're going with this, Jeremy. Is that Texas State and Arkansas State are kind of natural rivals now?
Ooh, are they?
You know, yeah. Because I mean, Texas State's
on.
on an island. Arkansas State's on an island. You know, Little Rock's out now. I mean, there's the rivalry right there.
I see. I hadn't even thought of that, but I think you're right. I think there should be a deeper rivalry between the two. That's actually something I've been trying to gin up for the last, I don't know, 2 or 3 years. This big Bobcat versus Red Wolves rivalry, and it hasn't quite materialized. Except maybe this year, I'm finally beginning to feel some heat, especially with Lane Hatcher going to the Bobcats, and also Lincoln Perry has gone to the Bobcats. So there's a sort of a we took your stuff mentality going on between the two. But other than that, how have you liked the way the season has shaped so far? I know there's been a little bit of disappointment, but maybe things are back on track.
And even a little deeper level to what you were saying before, the school president now was Arkansas State's former chancellor. You can't leave out Danforth.
Yes.
No, but
I'm sorry.
ahead.
I see you've got Kelly riding on a motorcycle out in the football field and creating all sorts of havoc. That's Kelly. You're going to love him. He is high energy guy. The students are going to think he's great. Congratulations. I'm glad you guys got him, but we're going to miss him. Yes, I will admit that.
It's interesting. Since he did that, it set a precedent. Now they had Boko, the mascot, ride out on the motorcycle. And I keep filming it because it's going to go viral when somebody falls off that bike. I mean, and I'm there ready for it if they're going to keep having celebrity guests.
Make sure that you have your insurance premiums updated, because I would hate for the Bobcats to be upended by a big insurance or non-insurance settlement. But okay, so the season has started a little bit rough with the Bobcats. And the Bobcats are notoriously slow starters anyway, right? But they have the FCS matchup this week. Things seem to be on track. I know Lane Hatcher had a big game. It was definitely needed. How does the team feel moving forward to you?
Yeah, well, the slow starters and slow finishers, honestly, is recent for the Bobcats. That game, 34-0 win seems like a big win, especially the shutout. That's always a good thing for a team. But they were up 24-0 at halftime. They came out really lackluster in the second half. They didn't actually score another touchdown until the 46 seconds left in the game, garbage time touchdown. So that's kind of been their theme this season is those second half. They seem to sputter. They start really hot and then they sputter in the second half. And that's been a point of emphasis when talking to Spavital, especially with a big opponent like JMU this week. I mean, they're 20-point underdogs going into it, playing them at home, sold out. And as far as I know, it's 25,000 people are going to be there. It's a pretty big game coming up this week for the Bobcats and showing if they can have that consistency of first half to second half. But it's a pretty big opponent for them. And things have looked good on defense. They have not been consistent on offense as much as we've talked about the man who shall not be named. I'm going to name him though, Lane Hatcher.
No.
He's progressed a little bit each game. It hasn't been a lights out game. Obviously, the scale of the opponent this past week, his numbers were pretty inflated, but it's been some slow growth with him at quarterback for the Bobcats and with the offense in general. I mean, Spavital, this offense coordinator, Jacob Peeler, leaves to go be the wide receiver coach at Missouri, and he doesn't hire another offense coordinator. He just says, well, I'm the offense coordinator and the head coach. It's kind of an interesting situation there as far as that goes. And it's been slow for the offense, but when you talk to the coach, you talk to Hatcher, they're saying that they're feeling good. The chemistry's there. They say all that cliche stuff. But we'll see. Big test this week. JMU, what is it? Number 3 defense in the country. So I mean, that's going to be a tough go for them this week.
I thought
How hard was it this past week? FCS game. They changed their name midweek. How many times did you say Houston Baptist?
I did so well until the post-game press conference, and it was like my second question. I said Houston Baptist to Coach Spavital, and I was just like, there, it's finally slipped out. But I was doing so well. Houston Christian, HCU, all that stuff. I mean, I don't know what was up with that, just separating themselves from the Baptist church. But I don't know why they didn't do that before the season or after the season. They decided 3 weeks in, like, hey, we're Houston Christian now. But
I think they just wanted the latch onto that halo effect of having played Texas State and then say, this is the time to announce it, or that's going to be the best time, maybe hoping that something spiritual would happen that would lead to an upset of Texas State. But speaking of upsets, you guys are a 22.5-point underdog to James Madison.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that spread?
I honestly, I think it could have been higher for James Madison. I think 22.5 is pretty generous. I think that a lot of people are shocked by how well JMU has done jumping to FBS, and they weren't paying attention when they were in FCS. I mean, this has been a really good program. They've got a lot of support financially and from the fan base and everything. So them making this transition so well so quickly, that part might be shocking how good they do look, especially with this past weekend with that win that they got. But I think it's a really good program. I think it's a really good addition to the SunBelt. I think it's just going to make it stronger. But for the Bobcats this week, it's going to be tough. I mean, because one thing that they have done pretty well so far is play the pass, but JMU is a running team. And I mean, I think most of the touchdowns the Bobcats have allowed have been on the ground. And so they've got a lot of good running backs for JMU. And so that's going to be a tough one for sure.
You mentioned defense being a strength. Kurt Signetti said the same thing in his press conference today at JMU. It's looking like it's going to be wet weather everywhere on the East Coast. Maybe not quite so bad here on this side of the mountains, but it's probably going to be raining during the game. Do you think that's going to slow down both offenses to the point where maybe this is one that kind of gets ground out in the end? Yeah,
I mean, if you're a gambler, man, take the under in that one for sure. But I think that actually benefits JMU more than it does Texas State. Texas State is pretty reliant on their passing game. Spavital is known as the air raid guy, and he's gotten it down to a pretty good even split this season with the pass and the run, but it's still the way the strength of the offense is through the air. So if it gets pretty rainy, they have a lot of backs. You mentioned Lincoln Perry at the beginning of the intro. They've got Calvin Hill, Jamel Jeter's Oklahoma State transfer. But they don't really seem to have that type of offense that if they have to go with the run, they're going to be in some trouble. They don't have like a true fullback or even really like a true blocking tight end. Even this past week, for the first time this season, they implemented a defensive lineman named Jamar Daniels. They put him at like this fullback, halfback type spot on fourth down so he could kind of block and make a hole just to make up for the deficiencies of their blocking scheme when they run the ball. So I think if it is bad weather, even Spavital brought that up too today about the weather and how it's probably going to rain this weekend in Virginia. But yeah, he said he's prepared for it and all of that. But my assessment of the offense this early this season is it's not great for them. If it's a rainy, wet day, I mean, especially for Hatcher, it's not going to be great.
So everybody seems to think that this is it for Spav. What's your take on that? And what do you think it takes for him to hang around for another year of leading the Bobcats, or even for the Don to make a mid-season move?
Yeah, I wouldn't count on a midseason move unless it's like a lot of lopsided losses in a row. I think they're pretty set on letting him finish out the year, but he will have to go 6-6 bowl game to even consider getting that extension, because it is the second to last year of his contract. So you can't go in with 1 year left on it. I mean, how are you going to recruit anybody or anything? So they would either have to extend him or move on from him. But this is absolutely a make or break year. I mean, at a lot of other schools, you wouldn't have gotten the fourth year after those first 3 years. I mean, 3 wins, 2 wins, and 4 wins wouldn't usually cut it. They're going to have to upset some people to get 4 more wins and get to that bowl game. It's not insurmountable, but it has to happen. I really do. I think 5-4 wins, they're going to have to move on, especially with we were talking about Kelly Damphus in there at president. He said it publicly a few times where if things aren't going right, changes will be made. So I don't think they would shy away from making a move, but he's not dead in the water yet. It still has to prove himself, a few more conference games to get there, but it's not looking great as far as the future. He's not going to get an extension right now after going 2-2 non-conference without that true signature win. But yeah, I would say he's absolutely playing for his job this year.
How good of a job is Texas State if they move on and make a change? There was a lot made in the preseason about, no indoor practice facility and stuff. I saw it in the national, I think it was The Athletic wrote about that.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems like location is good. People rave about the campus and the stadium and everything. How good of a job is it for somebody coming in there?
It's as far as the facilities and all of that, it's one of the lower ones in the SunBelt. I mean, this is a team that, and you're talking about the article from Sam Kahn that came out in The Athletic. This is a team that goes to the local high school here, San Marcos High School, because they have an indoor stadium. And I mean, this is Texas, where football is basically a religion, where high schools have nicer facilities. I'll go cover their games, and their press box kind of puts the Bobcats one to shame. And it just shows that, and that's not even the weight room. The weight room doesn't have enough racks, and lots of deficiencies with the facilities that need to be upgraded. It was like when the Bobcats moved to FBS 10 years ago, they just kind of rested on their laurels. Like, all right, we did it. We're here. Now the wins will just naturally come, without truly putting the support that was needed into the program to grow it and take it to this level. I mean, a team to look at would be like UTSA right down the road in San Antonio. They didn't even have a football program until 10 years ago. They incepted one, and they have surpassed Texas State. I mean, but with their facilities, that they still need to upgrade some stuff there. But as far as everything that they've done, that they've pushed into the program marketing and doing things to be an actually a successful FBS program, it's something that Texas State hasn't done. Now, there has been administrative changes that seemingly on the surface level, it's like, okay, this should mean that things are going to change around here. The longtime AD, Larry Tice, he was the AD there from 2003 until last year. He's been out, and he's been kind of known as a guy who was not very active in his job. And then the school president, Denise Troth, she was really good on the academic side for the university, but not really the athletic side. And now they're both out, and now they got Don Coryell there at AD. They've got Damphus there at president, and they both seem to understand the importance of athletics and how it's the front lawn of your university. It's what everybody sees. So you really have to keep it clean and everything, and a quality product to put out there for people to see. And maybe that would be attractive to a candidate looking at the new leadership and everything and saying, oh, okay, maybe these guys are going to change it. But that's a lot of what ifs. And if they're just looking at just the way the facilities are and everything like that, it's not the most ideal job. I wouldn't even say it's top 5 in the SunBelt if it were to come available. It should be one though. Be where it is as far as in the location. The San Marcos is, it's a nice thriving town in between Austin and San Antonio. You got 30 minutes away from each of those. You've got a hotbed of recruiting as far as Texas high schools all around. It should be elevated more than it is, and it just hasn't gotten there yet. But if it's a candidate that's looking at a place like, hey, I can be the guy to come in there and turn this around and be the man, that's what it would really take. But I don't think it's the most ideal job if you don't know much about the situation in and out with the new leaders at the helm. But you were just talking about Danfus. I think he's going to do some great things. And he talks a lot about it and ready to see it put into fruition, but that'll take some time.
So we have ULM head coach Keith Richard coming up here in just a little bit. Texas State, they're the kings of the West, kings of the Sun Belt when it comes to basketball. How has Coach TJ been able to really capitalize on all that to be as successful as he has been?
Yeah, great. I'm glad we transitioned to basketball. This is much more positive. No, Coach Terrence Johnson. It's so interesting how he came to be the coach after Casper was fired for those racially insensitive remarks he made. There was the whole investigation. They make TJ the interim coach, and they win the regular season Sun Belt, give him the extension, and it's been roses ever since for him. He inherited a really good team from Casper, so that was one way he was able to have instant success. And he was able to keep those guys and bring in some new ones, bring in some size, especially this season. They're going to have a lot more size, even though they lost Caleb Asbury. He went to Oklahoma State. That was probably their best scorer. So that's a pretty big loss. But you got Mason Harrell coming back, really good point guard. So he's very much a player's coach. They love him. He's a younger guy, like 39, something like that. And so he's able to really get along with them and curate this culture that makes them want to be around. And he even talked about when he took over, and there was a lot of, obvious infighting and turmoil with their coach being let go over, such a controversial topic. And he actually didn't play basketball for 3 days with them. Every practice they'd come in and they would actually talk to like counselors and mental health professionals and really get it out. And it's kind of a modern approach to it, instead of like, hey, let's sweat it out. Let's just run until we don't have feelings anymore. He was, let's stop and talk about it. And I just think that speaks to the kind of coach that he is. He had some letdowns in the tournament though. So he's, there's some of that. They would win the regular season, they'd go to tournament and fell on their face twice. So they've got to
close it out. Yeah. But
Yeah.
here's something that kind of surprises me is when we talk about Texas State, it always drifts first to football. We talk about some of the struggles that have happened with that Bobcats program. But then the rest of the athletic program seems to be in great shape. I mean, the volleyball team's always good. The basketball team is always good.
Soccer, of course.
Soccer is always good. So everything in San Marcos seems to be good, except for that the baseball has been really good.
Mhm.
Yeah, so everything's really good, except then there's this sort of dark cloud over football. How do you transition all that good stuff that's coming from the rest of the athletic program and try to move it into the football?
Yeah, football, it's so big. It's just such a different animal than those other sports. And I think it was treated for a while like it was those other sports, when it needs a lot more. And I think that's from talking to everybody, people that work at the school, it seems like that mindset has shifted to yeah, okay, we do, because before it was people would say, hey, the football team sucks, and they'd go, but what about volleyball? And it's like, volleyball's not on ESPN. I mean, they're on ESPN Plus, but they're not.
Sure,
it's not on ESPN. It's not what everybody sees. Everybody sees football. So I think that's really what it's going to have to change is administrative support and people really who are inside there to getting behind it and infusing it with everything it needs, which is money, really.
So speaking of the SunBelt and putting it all together. Let's pull out a little bit. Who has surprised you this summer? We know JMU has been surprising because we just didn't know what to expect from them. Who else is surprising you? Let's start in the West, which seems to be just as entertaining as the East lately. Who do you see in the West that surprised you so far?
I mean, right off the bat, ULM they just beat Louisiana. Got to hand that to them. I mean, that was a pretty good one. I wouldn't say Southern Miss is surprising either, but they're surprising the last couple of weeks with that win over Tulane, and they seem like a new team from the beginning of the season. I love hearing Will Hall too. I mean, I could listen to any one of his press conferences, but that's a fun guy. It seems like a fun person to interview. But yeah, the West, it seems pretty open. And I guess surprising in the other way is Louisiana and how I thought they were going to run away with the West. And, they've made it more competitive with dropping a couple games. But,
yeah, I think the opinion here at SunBelt Podcast was that even though they're the defending champions, they had lost so much with Napier leaving for Florida. A lot of guys followed them out, not even necessarily to Florida, just left. So, yeah, I feel like the West is wide open, even for guys like the Red Wolves and the Bobcats to make some noise. What about the East? I know we're creatures of the West, but what are you looking at? First of all, I guess you're going to get a taste of the East when the Dukes come or when you visit the Dukes. What do you think of the East in general?
Yeah, it's interesting to see Coastal still churning it out 4-0. I thought they were going to have some sort of drop off, but Jamie Chadwell is really getting it right there. I'm surprised at Georgia State, how they're 0-4. I mean, it's a pretty tough first 4 games for them, but I thought they would have snuck 1 or 2 out in there. So that one is pretty surprising to me, but it's a competitive conference just because Coastal's on top of it. I mean, JMU's right there. Old Dominion's looking good. Of course, there's App State that they're doing their thing. It's an interesting division in the conference for sure. As far as who's going to take it, I couldn't tell you. I mean, Coastal sitting on top, it seems like the easy answer, but App State could just as easily go on a run. I mean, that's
too much entropy. How could we possibly know right now? It's crazy. Plus is minus, minus is plus. We know nothing and we know everything. It's just kind of crazy how this landscape's going. Please, somebody talk me off the ledge.
No, push.
I mean, that's the beauty of sports, though. I mean, it was, you're in fall camp and you have all these ideas and you think exactly how it's going to play out, and it just has not played out that way at all.
Oh, no, we're so smug in SunBelt Media Days. Oh, we know what's going to happen. We know nothing, Tibbs. Shane, you're the legitimate reporter here working for the newspaper. How come you don't know anything?
Because I don't. It's just me. You know me well enough to know I don't know anything.
We brought you here for legitimacy, and we're still all fools. We can't predict anything. Our crystal balls are broken. We have no idea what's going to happen.
So, Keff, later in the show, we'll have our second short segment where we kind of break down the upcoming games. Tell us, what do you see happening this upcoming week, JMU and Texas State?
We want to know.
Yeah, if it's that rainy weather, it's like I said, it won't be super high scoring, but I mean, it will be. I think the Dukes will still get over 30, even if it's a rainy day on the ground. But I think that 22 is pretty generous. I could see a good 28-30 point win for JMU this upcoming weekend. Which, I think for the Bobcats, if they really want to have some hope, I'm not obviously not someone for moral victories, but if they can make it competitive and maybe even beat that 22.5, beat the spread, then I think that would be a good sign for them going forward. But if they get run out of the stadium again for a third time this year, their other 2 losses they have, I think that's a pretty bad sign going forward for them.
Great teams cover.
Great teams cover.
Well, remember the last time you played an East team, that was FIU. You guys pretty much took them to the house. So if you just kind of put on the goggles and look at JMU as just FIU, then maybe the Bobcats come and win.
I think JMU is a little different.
Oh, okay.
Florida International, just slightly.
You're pumping up Shane. Shane becomes completely egotistical when he gets this type of feedback. So we're just going to have to back off a little bit on that.
Yeah, because I have a lot to do with it. Yeah.
The other difference will be that I will not be there Saturday to cheer on the Bobcats.
Oh, the Bobcats. Huh? I've seen you call them that before. See, that's how you get the rivalry going. You just keep throwing that out there.
Trying to stoke it up a little bit because I tell you what, the fans of San Marcos very chill, except the moments when they're not. Then the atoms start vibrating and they're ready to start choking people. But for the most part, it just seems like everybody goes with the flow in San Marcos. And so with Arkansas State not having a real rival, like a geographic rival, I've been trying to get that Texas State, Arkansas State rivalry to sort of flame up by casting as many unnecessary insults as possible. I don't know if it's working. Maybe you can help me out with that. Maybe you and I could stage like a sort of Twitter fight where we just get really insulting with each other. Like I've always wanted to do this. Like I've always wanted to hire a stuntman to attack me at a bar with me and my wife. And I just like throw him through a window and I would look really cool. That's what we could do. You and I could do that and get this rivalry going.
I my editors would hate me if I did that. So, but I'll tell you what, I know a few crazies on Twitter that.
Oh no! Please, no! Don't throw me to the crazies because I'm not.
I know there's some of the Bobcat faithful that would go toe to toe with you, no doubt about it. But I'm for it. I really think. I mean, that game. What was it? 48-45 2 years ago. That was in 2020. That was a great game. And I mean, I think what it really is it's hard to get the Bobcat fans to come back at you because they've just been so beaten down that they don't feel adequate enough to come like throw barbs at other teams. They're too busy throwing barbs at their own coach and their own team and everything. But once the Bobcats get to a competitive season, I think you'll start to see more confident Texas State fans, and that's when we can get that rivalry born.
Well, we play so late in the year usually too.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's all settled by then. The Bobcats have had a bad season, or Arkansas State's had a bad season, and there doesn't seem to be anything on the line. I am hoping that by the time we meet Texas State, I think we meet in November, there'll be like maybe a bowl placement on the line, or maybe we're both fighting for the SunBelt West. Who knows? There has to be some juice to get it going.
SunBelt West on the line would be something. If that's how it shakes out, I mean.
It won't be the Warhawks. We can all agree on it. The Warhawks aren't going to be there.
Hey, they might. Hey, you don't know, man. You don't know. I mean, that was
we'll see after this weekend there, Jeremy. Okay. Keff, we thank you so much for joining us. Tell everybody how they can check out your great podcast and the great work that you do.
Sure. Yeah, you can check me out at Win Now or Get Bent on Twitter. That's
Great
the
name.
podcast title. Thank you. My Twitter is at Keff_C. You can find the podcast Apple, Spotify, all that. And I write articles for the Austin American Statesman as well. You can find it on their website. But appreciate y'all letting me come on. This is great. I've been listening to the podcast for a little bit. It was good to get on here and chat it up with you guys.
Well, come on anytime, and we'll talk a little bit about that Bobcat A-State rivalry.
Let's do it. Let's get it cooking. We'll do it. I'm going to send a crazy your way.
No, don't do that.
Jeremy, all the talk of the gridiron,
yeah,
it's also basketball season. I've been hearing the shoes squeaking, balls dribbling. It's almost here. It's almost March Madness.
Yeah, here's the funny thing about college basketball season. It's like it starts up kind of clandestinely, like it sneaks up. Like you get all the rigmarole of football. Meanwhile, the guys are in the gym. They're practicing their bounce passes, layups, and whatever we're going to practice. And then suddenly it's here, and you're like, "Oh shit, we got to get ready for the basketball season."
Yeah, and our guest coming in today as we kick off our basketball previews. The head Warhawk himself, head coach Keith Richard. Welcome in there, Coach.
Glad to be here, guys. As Jeremy said, the balls are bouncing right now. I know not many people are listening, but they're bouncing. And we got started yesterday with our first official day, and like many teams across the country, sometime this week, pretty much everybody will be starting. And so, you look up in a month or so from now, a little over a month, we'll be, throwing it up for real. So, that's what it is.
Coach, you say that it's early and maybe nobody's listening, but I tell you right, at Arkansas State at least, I can't say that, but I can't speak for all campuses. I know the grousing has begun. Do you hear any grousing from the fan base wanting to see more wins?
Well, I mean, I think you always have that on pretty much any fan base when you don't win as much as you have liked through the year before and that type thing. So I don't think that's abnormal at all. I mean, it's just we're in this day and time. Everybody wants to win all the time, and I get it. And then you got schools, like ours, like y'all, that I mean, just dependent on winning. You need winning to grow and do more. And I get it. And so I don't hear any more or less. It's about the same.
So, Coach, this year you have a lot of your players still coming back, but you got a guy that I know you're excited about. I'm excited about, Jalen Bolden at the point guard position. Tell me what you've seen out of him early on, and is he really going to be as big as we collectively think he's going to be?
Well, I think you're probably putting a little bit going too fast with him a little bit, in that he's still a freshman, and it takes a special player. I mean, I had Paul Millsap at Louisiana Tech. He was pretty special as a freshman. He led the country in rebounding as a freshman. And I had Nick Coppola here as a true point guard back in 2014, I guess. And he ended up being our point guard for 4 years and, never came off the court. And I have numerous examples, but it's not the norm. Usually freshmen have to blend in usually and see how long it takes for them to get used to everything and that type thing. And some translate real quickly. Some takes a little more months, some takes, a year. I will say this about Jalen, since you mentioned him, a couple of things. We're very, very excited about Jalen. That was a good high school get for us, I believe. The thing that I think that what he's shown through the summer and even here in the preseason, he's got a SunBelt body. He's SunBelt built kind of already. Usually I get freshmen, I got to build them up, and get them in the weight room and he's come in with that body already. That's helped him early on, the strength of the game. And so, all the other things will come sooner or later. And, he's had some good days and some tough days, but not with his body, not with his toughness, not with his rebounding, not with his aggressive play. He's an aggressive player. And we liked all that about him. And so, we'll just see how it goes, from the get-go. But I know that we like him. I really thought it was a really good get for us. And I think that today as we start official practice.
Coach, I remember last year you guys wore us out with this guy named Nika. I can never pronounce his name because it's too many consonants. All I hope, please tell me he's gone back to Europe. He's not coming back to Louisiana. He's done playing basketball. He's doing something else that requires his skills. I don't want to see him again. Tell me he's not back.
He's from the country of Georgia, which is
That's right.
Which is right next to Ukraine and Russia, right there.
Yeah.
And I let him go home this summer because he was a little worried about his parents, and they're not in it, but they're right there.
Yeah.
And then got a call from him this summer. He was in a panic. Georgia was fixing to draft everybody in the country.
Oh,
we got, and he needed a letter from the school and all this and that. So he had to come back, and man, we got right on it. And
Coach,
got him what he needed, and he is back here. And he's I think I'm really high on him, and I think he needs to have a really good year for us. I think he's very capable of having a very good year for us. And
Well, he's awfully capable of nailing a 3-pointer to seal the deal. That's for
he
sure.
he had a big day in practice yesterday. I mean, big day, kind of the first one since he's been back. I mean, big day. And one where you go, whoa, that's an all conference player, and so we're counting on him a lot, and he's such an unselfish kid. I usually have to calm guys down from being selfish. I'm having to push him. I need him to be a little more selfish and be a little more greedy, because I think he could be a good player. I really do think he could be an all-league player, and we're really counting on him.
So, Coach, obviously at ULM, been there since 2010.
10.
See, time flies when you're having fun. The one date I didn't write down is your time at ULM.
Gee whiz.
I know.
Sloppy.
My 13th year here.
13th year. But we play the Wayback Machine. Your first ever coaching job, not a GA, but coaching job, was with the good old Thunder and Herd. The Herd now back in the conference, and you get to go to this year. Does that game kind of carry a little bit of meaning for you, knowing that you're going back to your first job?
It does. I went to Marshall in 1986. I was there from 86 to 89. I met my wife in college here at ULM before then. And so she had went to junior high here in West Monroe, left in high school and moved to Charleston, West Virginia. Her daddy had got transferred. It's 50 miles from Huntington. And then she came back to college at ULM. She missed all her friends from junior high and all that kind of stuff, and hated West Virginia, hated Charleston, hated anything to do with West Virginia. So we met in college. As you mentioned, I was a GA before all that, and we were dating, all this and that. And I go to Huntington, West Virginia in 1986. We get married in 87. And she swore she'd never go back to West Virginia. So I brought her back to West Virginia, to Huntington, right down the road from where she went to high school. She had to go through that. When we left there and I came back to ULM in 89 as an assistant for Mike Vinan at ULM, back with my old coach, as we left there, we were married then. As we went out of the state, she said, I'm never coming back here. I'm bringing her back this year.
Broken promises.
I'm going to fly her with us, and I'm going to bring her back to West Virginia once again. But the 3 years I spent there were really kind of phenomenal, Dusty. Back then, Marshall was a basketball school, and it's football now, and still some basketball. But back then, football hadn't got going yet, and it was just all basketball. And the 3 years I was there, I mean, we were averaging, over 8,000 people a night, many times put 10 in there. It was serious. And met a lot of good friends, people through all that, obviously, and haven't been back there in a long time. So it will be good to go back in that respect and see some of the old supporters that, were there when I was there, even though it's been a long time, and there's still a few left. But yeah, I'm looking forward to going back to it, in particular for that reason.
So, Coach, I know you'll want to win, but your wife will be like, yeah, whatever it is, win, loss, as long as we're out of here quick.
I was coaching back then. They didn't have an ops job. They had what you called a part-time job. That was the ops position, and it wasn't a full-time position. So I was making $12,000 a year, and I sent one of our boosters on the coal lab plant. A laboratory, a coal lab plant. And so I got him to hire her where she could make the money. And she'd come home every night black and cold, except for the goggles she had on. She doesn't ever want to go back again. And, but she made good money, and so she had to do it. And but we had some good times there, and so it'd be neat to go back.
So obviously the good tie there of Marshall. Any ties to the new schools and other opponents that you'll have this upcoming season?
No, other than James Madison, the coach, was at Georgia Southern, Mark, I know him. We know him. Jeff Jones at Old Dominion, have known him, a long time. The coach at Southern Miss, I've known him a long time. And we used to play Southern Miss forever, used to be a home and home, every other year for years, before we kind of went our separate ways. And so Jay Ladner's the coach there. So that'll be good to get that series back going again. And it's a monster league now, as you well seeing in football, and it's just going to trickle to basketball as well. 14-team league, and good schools, and good programs, good coaches, and very, very, very competitive, no question.
So with football, obviously, we know that the SunBelt's one of the P5, are one of the best in the G5 rather. Commissioner Keith Gill really making that push to try to elevate the game of basketball. You do that with some pretty big games there, going to A&M, TCU, Tech, and Tulane. But just like Jay Walker at Louisiana Lafayette always says, the home schedule just sucks. Why can SunBelt schools not get those good home opponents?
I know. Well, it's just tough. If you don't have buy money, okay, let's be serious. If you don't have buy money to go buy people, okay, entice people to come, you have you're starting from behind the eight ball, so to speak. And to build your schedule, and a lot of teams in our league have this issue. There's a few teams that are able to buy some games, but not many, And so from there, when you go start building a schedule, it becomes difficult because you're trying to get a certain number of home games. You have no buy money to do it. Oh yeah, you want to play get some good teams to come in. They don't really want to play you. They want to buy some games and then go play neutrals. It's a big old, mess of a formula that I don't know that fans really understand. And it's hard for me to even explain or coaches like us that, are at the mid-major level, and you're trying to put together a home schedule, an attractive home schedule, and then yet at times with some schools, and us being one of them, you got to bring in a little money. You try to bring in a little money for your school. We're playing 3 buy games this year, and that's A&M, TCU, and Tulane. And so right off the bat, you're 3 road games down before you even blink, and you kind of try to go from there, and so I know it's like our schedule, it's not picture perfect in terms of what everybody would like to see. But I do think this: we got 15 home games, okay, 15's 15 any way you look at it. We've got some regional games of some of the normal teams, some Southland teams that we play. We've got Jacksonville coming in here from the ASUN, who had a good year last year. Sam Houston from the South on the WAC, whatever they're in now, and they've had a good year. They had a good year last year. Louisiana Tech will be returning the game to us next year, so that'll be good. And then you just try to balance it out in there. You got 3 bye games, you got 3 non-D1s. Sorry, I got to do that to balance out them 3 money games, and then you just work your way from there. And sometimes it ends up, what fans want. Sometimes it's not, but you just do the best you can with it, especially at our level.
Coach, who are the Warhawks going to miss the least? Arkansas, U of A, UA Little Rock, or UTA?
I didn't mind going to either one of them, to be honest with you, win or lose. And the reason is because it was easy drive. Little Rock was 3 hours from here, and UTA 3 and a little bit, or 3 whatever, 3:40, 3:30, 3:45. It was easy drives, always competitive games, regardless of the year or the coaches. I'm gonna miss playing them. I really am. Known all the coaches that have been at them at those schools, and I hate to see it that we don't, they're not in the league anymore. Obviously, it was football and all that. But they were three, good members in this school in the basketball world. And I'm certainly going to miss them.
I know it's early. Camp just started. How do you see the West and then the SunBelt as a whole kind of shaking out this upcoming season?
Well, I think that, you got some teams that you probably think are going to be, just pretty good regardless. Lafayette returns a lot, I think they'll probably, be picked with a lot of people, up there. Texas State has been good, and they may be up there, picked to go as well. The new people in the league, I know probably, Marshall and Old Dominion are going to, be up there somewhere. South Alabama seems to have a great recruiting class every year, and he does the transfer thing pretty heavily and has done well at it, in terms of getting good players. And so you got to always kind of think about them, and then you have maybe the rest of us, whoever we are, that a bunch of I don't know. Arkansas State lost a lot, good players that they lost, really good players. Not really sure how they done in recruiting. I hadn't paid that much attention because I've been worried about my own self. And but they lost a great little post player. I mean, my gosh, he killed us at the end of the year in the tournament. Just single-handedly won the game himself.
I don't want to talk about that.
Oh, he just,
I'd rather just move on. Think about 2022, 23.
Yeah, I don't know if we were a good or bad matchup for Arkansas State. We split during the regular season. They beat us in the tournament in a close game. But we weren't a good matchup for that kid. I know that he killed us in all three games.
Yeah, Norchad O'Meara was a good guy to have. He's now with Miami. We wish him the best of luck, but damn, I don't like talking about it. It hurts.
I know.
Hurts to see him go.
I know. And and they had good guards. They lost a couple of them, really good guards. And so, but so then it's all about, well, who did you get? And I think there's a lot of us in that boat, a lot of new guys, and remains to be seen, kind of what can happen with the rest of us. And I think that's the same thing true with us, to be honest with you. We've got 8 new guys. We like them. We do. We like what we did. We wanted to get a little bigger and stronger because of your guy. My gosh. I mean, and not just inside, which we think we did, but just kind of across the board. Just a little bigger and stronger, and with the guards even as well. We've been kind of very thin the last couple of years. Now, we were thin 4 years ago, but we were really fast and quick. The team, Dusty, that had Deshaun Smith and Mike Ertl and Tyreek White, J.D. Wibbs, that team was thin, but we were fast and quick and could score. Really good offensive team. And which is what you got to be, and very athletic if you're really thin. The last couple of years, we've been thin and not like that, not as fast, not as athletic, and just overall, it wasn't, kind of where we needed to be in terms of the league. And we played hard, competitive, lost a lot of close games and all that. But we tried to change it this year and just get a little bigger and stronger across the board. And that sticks out to me as we have practice, is that, we're not as thin as we were, and we're not as in all spots, really, just across the board. It looks like a bigger and stronger team. And so I'm hoping that really helps us in the league play.
Coach, we teased your appearance on the podcast with a picture from your retro days of wearing the NOU gold uniform. Why is baseball the only sport where the coach wears the uniform? And will you be the one to break that trend?
If they try to make us go back to suit and ties, I'm busting out with it. All right. I'm going to set a new trend with that uniform. But that was my senior year uniform in 1982, 81, 82, which I had up in an attic somewhere. And I wore that on the very first day of my first practice of the very first year I came back here.
And it still fit.
It did at the time. I don't know if it will today. And but I thought it was, poetic that I was coming back to coach my alma mater, and that was my senior uniform, and the kids got a real kick out of it. And if you notice, they got the short shorts were back then. Well, they're coming back now.
Yeah.
It's coming back.
Showing off leg.
Yeah, I mean, and so if I hang around a little bit longer, maybe that one of those guys can wear my shorts or something. I don't know, but we probably won't see that again unless they force me, or if we have to go back to suit and ties.
Coach, we thank you for your time, the preview of the Warhawks. Wish you the best of luck this upcoming season. Looking forward to seeing you in the postseason again, and also in Pensacola to try to get that SunBelt Conference title.
Appreciate what you guys do. And the only thing I want to say to Jeremy is that these Warhawks are hot now. If you noticed last Saturday, now we hot now.
I know you're hot. I
Hey,
don't.
I was
don't
at that
need this in
game,
my
and I'm
life.
gonna tell you, I was impressed. Now we got a chance, so we'll
I
see
don't
what
want any more hot teams in the SunBelt West. You guys can move out east. I'm tired of this.
happens.
Thanks,
See you
Coach.
guys.
Thanks, Coach.
Okay.
Yeah, Coach R coming in with the heat, coming in with the fire. You know what? I don't blame him. I thought the Warhawks had a really good team last year. Didn't have a storied season like some of the other teams did, but I feel like the building blocks for a program is there. And Coach R was a great interview. Thank you so much for him being on the show. But you know what it's time for, Shane?
I think it's second and short.
Second and short. Now you know the rules. We have 2 minutes to discuss the upcoming games. This time it's week 5. I think week 5 is a week where there's a lot of get well games. Games for programs that are playing FCS programs, and maybe they kind of need that respite. But there's also some opportunities for revenge, and we'll talk a little bit about that too in a second. I am going to put up my schedule so we can have everything ready, and I will start with our first game. Georgia State at Army, 11 a.m. on the CBS network. Georgia State got beat by Army at the beginning of the year last season. After feeling pretty good, they thought they were going to have this great season. Didn't work out to start the year with the Army. What do you guys think happens with that game? I'm going to start off with Shane Mettlen.
Well, we have the common opponent to go by in Coastal Carolina.
Yeah.
And Coastal handled both of these teams relatively easily. Although I do think, Coastal was cruising before Grayson McCall got hurt in that Georgia State game. I'm going to expect a close one in this. And looking at the line, Army's favored by a touchdown or so. That sounds about right to me. But I do think Georgia State has a chance to finally get that win. And maybe they know this might be one of the most easy opportunities to get that win they're going to see for a while. Maybe they come out ready to play after what's been a really disappointing start to the season for them.
I'm kind of giving up on Georgia State for the time being. I need to see something. Tibbs, am I wrong to be giving up on Georgia State?
Go Army, beat Panthers.
Yes, as a part of the military family, I understand why you have an affinity for Army, but I need more solid analysis from you, Tibbs.
That's all I got for you. The Army is going to murder the Panthers.
And is it because the Panthers just doesn't seem to have anything on defense? I mean, let's face it. Coastal Carolina clowned that defense. What is going on with the Panthers? I thought they were supposed to be somebody in the East.
Yeah,
Explain.
You got to think this is their breaking point, where they're about to just kind of write the season off. Things just haven't gone well for the Panthers. I think this is just another nail in the coffin. I mean, you got to go all the way upstate New York. It's getting cold. Southern guys don't like the cold. Army's just going to roll, guys.
Coach Sean Elliott in his presser on Monday seemed pretty positive, but I don't know. So Vegas says 7.5. What do you think, Shane? You said earlier you thought that looked right.
I think that's going to be fairly close, but yeah, I'm not sold on I'm not really sold on Georgia State covering or winning outright in this one.
All right, time is up, which means we got another great game to discuss. This game we've discussed already with our guests. We've sort of discussed it amongst ourselves for a little bit, but now we're going to discuss it officially on Second and Short. Texas State at James Madison, 12:30 on ESPN Plus. Shane, come on, give me your most honest opinion on this.
My honest opinion is I didn't expect to see JMU as a 20-point or more favorite in a SunBelt game this year going in. But this seems fairly close. Winning by more than 3 touchdowns could be a lot, but if JMU gets rolling, keeps the crowd behind them, it might be very difficult for Texas State to score on JMU's defense from what the Dukes have shown so far this year, giving up less than 100 yards rushing total this season. It's been pretty incredible showing from the defense.
Tibbs, it's 22.5 points, just a big old slap in the face for the Bobcats.
That's a lot of points, but I think that the odds makers are looking at the fact that JMU just went in and beat App State, really shut them down for the entire second half.
Yeah.
I think it's closer than 21. I do think the Dukes get the win, but I do think it's closer than that.
So what you're saying, Tibbs, is that you don't take the points?
No, I think it's a 10-point game.
Yeah, it's hard. It's really hard to take those points. Is James Madison a high-scoring team, or are they more of a defensive team?
They've put up points this year.
Yeah.
Even against Appalachian State, they got into the 30s. But I mean, it's been the defense that's been the most impressive this year. But I say that, but it really has been both sides of the ball. There's just no way around it. JMU's been really impressive so far. Maybe it's a fluke, but so far it's hard to deny them.
Shane, how cocky right now is Kirk Cignetti? He kind of came into SunBelt Media Days a little, put out that they were ranked so low. How's his confidence now?
I mean, he's always got a little bit of that cocky edge to him, but it's a totally different situation this time around. He's trying to keep them focused after a big win rather than playing the underdog card.
All right, now we get to a couple games for programs that started the season extremely hot, guys. I mean, so hot you could not touch them. They seem like to be not just the darlings of the SunBelt, but the darlings of college football. The Citadel at Appalachian State, 2:30 p.m. on ESPN Plus. Shane, your Dukes just pretty much destroyed Appalachian State's will to live. Will they have anything for the Citadel?
Yes. This will be one where finally Appalachian State fans can relax in the fourth quarter, as opposed to all the games that they've played that have been decided by 4 points or less so far this season. They're going to crush the Citadel. They're going to take out their frustrations on the Citadel. There's still an old rivalry between App State and the Citadel going back to the FCS days. App State's gonna work some things out this week, I think.
Tips, do you think maybe we kind of hinted at it? Are there problems in Boone? I know they got the big win against number 6 Texas A&M, but then they struggle against who they struggle against?
Troy.
Oh yeah, they struggle against Troy. Need a Hail Mary to win that game. Troy, for all intents and purposes, won that game. Then they get beat by James Madison, a newbie to the conference. Is there something going on at Appalachian State?
I think that they were just kind of caught being complacent, going through the motions, thinking that they could just sleepwalk through games. I think, though, when the Citadel come in with that powder blue, they're going to have some PTSD of the North Carolina game and ensure that they put up 60 points quickly against that powder blue team to get the win.
I'm kind of in the same thought pattern as you are. That I feel like Appalachian State needs a punching bag, and the 4 Citadel cadets are going to be the guys that absorb it. I'm going to call this one early and get to the next game. So we talked about the mighty problems of Appalachian State, but a team that I feel like is struggling even more mightily is Marshall. They get Gardner Webb, 2 p.m. on ESPN Plus. Shane, we talked a little bit about this earlier, but what is going on with the Herd?
What I hear a lot complaint-wise from Marshall fans right now is about the offensive line. Them just not getting the job done, which is a little surprising, especially as good as their running game looked in the first couple weeks of the season. But I don't know if they're having health issues or what. I haven't looked too closely into it, to be honest with you, because I've been focused on some of the other games, other teams. But it does, another situation where they should be able to work some things out this week. If they don't, then we really got to wonder what's going on in Huntington.
Troy's offense didn't even score a touchdown in that game. It was 16-7. I think the defense scored a pick six, and then it was nothing but field goals for Troy after that. Does Gardner Webb get a Marshall team that might be beatable, Tibbs?
Easily. I think that they are, and I think that this is our cheek-clenching moment of having that FCS winning streak for the SunBelt, possibly put in jeopardy.
I feel the same way.
Yeah, I mean, you saw what they did against Coastal. Now, don't get me wrong, I think Coastal was kind of sandbagging us early on in the schedule.
Yeah, rope it up.
But they were still right there with the shots all the way through the end of the game.
I am going to call this one a little bit early because this next game is a lot more interesting. Georgia Southern at Coastal Carolina, 3 p.m. ESPN Plus. The Eagles kind of played toe-to-toe with Ball State for the fourth quarter and then blew them out. Coastal Carolina destroyed Georgia State. This looks like a good game to me. Am I crazy?
I think it's the best game of the weekend.
Yeah, this is a really interesting one. Because Georgia Southern responded pretty well to their first loss. Coastal was looking a little bit more like what we expected from Coastal last week against Georgia State. Is that because Georgia State's done? Or Georgia State just totally cooked and Coastal was able to kind of take advantage of that? Or are we going to see that passing game from them that Grayson McCall was throwing it all over the place in the first half?
Yeah, Georgia Southern has their own Grayson McCall and Kyle Van Teese. That's going to be a really great matchup. You think it's the best game of the week? Explain why, Tibbs.
Two great quarterbacks, two great offenses, defenses that are just good enough to hold the others in check. But I think we're going to see a high-scoring game, and the team with the ball at the end of the game wins. Yeah,
and what a statement game that would be for Clay Helton and the Eagles to come away with a win at Coastal Carolina, who, by the way, never seems to leave Conway. I don't know how they do it. They must have magic scheduling. It's just awesome that they can stay in Conway. But, we saw McCall get a little dinged up at the end of that game against Georgia State. Is he going to be okay?
Haven't heard anything too concerning as far as that. It sounds like he's going to be ready to go, but they do need him. They looked like a different team without him against Georgia State. They were able to hang on and, did get one touchdown with the backup quarterback, but, they need Grayson McCall the rest of the season.
I had forgotten to start the timer. I was so excited to talk about this game. I'm going to call it now and go on to the next game, which in a lot of ways, Tibbs, I find that this game just as fascinating. South Alabama at Louisiana, 4 p.m., ESPN Plus. South Alabama just looks really good. Louisiana, on the other hand, doesn't look so good. What's your analysis on this, Tibbs?
I mean, I watched the Cajuns 2 weeks in a row. Watched them lose the streak at Rice, lose this past week at ULM.
Yeah.
I'll say this, the consistency of the Cajuns defense, though, the defense is there. It's all about that offense and whether or not Chandler Fields and that offensive line, the run game of Chris Smith, can get the Cajuns back into the end zone. They just haven't been able to move the ball or to score enough points to literally beat their opponent. You don't score, you don't win.
Cajuns were held to just 88 rushing yards against the Warhawks. That is just not Cajun football. That is crazy. Meanwhile, South Alabama just kind of putting on to people. What do you think of South Alabama, Shane?
I've been impressed by them. You know, they should be undefeated with a win on the West Coast at UCLA. There's no excuse for them not to be right now. But luckily for them, that game doesn't really matter too much in the long run because they can win the West. I really think they could win the West and be playing in the SunBelt championship game later this season.
How good has Carter Bradley been for South Alabama? I mean, I think he's got 1,100 yards already, 10 touchdowns. He's kind of that strong-armed quarterback that they've always wanted. He's suddenly kind of in the top, echelon of SunBelt quarterbacks, and he's what came in under the radar.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at just how deep this league is at quarterback, it's amazing, and he's one of them. You look at guys who are ranked highly in multiple statistical categories nationally. He's up there with the Grayson McCall, Todd Centeos, and everything. He's one of the names you see frequently when you start clicking on those stat pages. It's been a really great start to the season for him.
Yeah, that's funny, Shane, because in my preseason preview of the SunBelt, I really thought that quarterback was the weakness of the SunBelt, that there are a lot of new faces, a lot of untried guys. Turns out there's a lot of great quarterback play.
The power of the governor.
And Kay Womack, maybe the most confident guy going right now. Maybe even as confident as Coach Signetti. Guys, when do we get rid of Liberty? Liberty at Old Dominion, 5 p.m. ESPN Plus. Shane, when we go see how that game?
That should be very interesting. Liberty is extremely physical up front. It's going to be, it's an intense game. Everybody in Virginia that's not a Liberty fan hates Liberty. And I mean, that's just the honest truth of it, and, it's going to be, another pretty wild sold out crowd in Norfolk. And, I think ODU seems to take advantage of that atmosphere when they have it. And I think that's going to be big for them this week. But, Liberty seems to be getting better and better. And maybe we dock them too many points for going to overtime with Southern Miss when Southern Miss doesn't look too bad these days.
Oh, that's good analysis. Hugh Freeze, he's going to figure out that defense. Old Dominion, 7 sacks, 13 TFL, and a pick 6 against Arkansas State. That defense is for real. Tibbs, the Flames are a 1.5 point favorite. What does that even mean to you?
To quote our former show guest, Jake Crane, nobody plays harder than somebody that's playing for the afterlife. I think Liberty comes in playing hard, but I like the Monarchs and good old Hudson to take a bite out of Liberty.
Anytime it's a pick'em like that, Tibbs, I just go with the home team. I feel like that the home team has the home advantage, and they're going to just win the game. So I got to go with ODU and the SunBelt. I feel like the Flames go down in flames, but Hugh Freeze has fooled me in the past.
When did he fool you? Oh, that's right, when he was your coach.
Moving on. You know what? I barely even want to talk about this game because I'm afraid I'm going to jinx it. ULM and Arkansas State, 6 p.m., ESPN Plus. Warhawks coming off a huge win against the Cajuns. Arkansas State loses its second lead in the fourth quarter in a row. What do you see out of this game, Tibbs?
Hell to the Chief till the Chief falls. Warhawks haven't won in Jonesboro since the inaugural year of the SunBelt Conference. I don't see why it changes this year. I would love to be wrong, but I think the Red Wolves get another close win.
What is funny about that rivalry is it really has turned into an offensive slobber knocker. It's like there's really no defense that's played in these games. But you're right. ULM hasn't won or beaten Arkansas State since 2009. And as you said earlier, has not won in Jonesboro since 2001. Arkansas State really needs a win. And this is probably a good time for it. I know it's homecoming. It's an opponent that we have some history with. Arkansas State is a 7.5 point favorite. I feel like they're finally going to figure out how to win in the fourth quarter. I know that the Warhawks bring in some pretty good defense. They shut down that Cajuns offense in a way that I've never seen the Cajuns shut down in recent history. Shane, I know that you vowed to be quiet during this one because it's me and Tibbs, and we're supposed to be mad. We're not mad. We're just good old fashioned rivals. Shane, give us some perspective from this. What do you think of this game?
I'm leaning ULM a little bit because they've shown they can win the close game, and Arkansas State has struggled to finish those out.
Yeah, all right, you know what? That makes sense because ULM was down, came back to beat the Cajuns. Arkansas State playing the opposite way. What do you think about that, Tibbs? Do you like that analysis?
Not at all, because head coach Terry Bowden and the Warhawks have not won at least the past 3 years on the road. No road wins.
Do
There it
You
is.
just don't know when.
Last game on the docket. And I can't tell if it's going to be a game that's going to surpass 1,000 points or not. Only because Troy's defense is so stout, but Western Kentucky's offense is just so powerful. Troy
They
at
don't have
Western,
Zappy.
no, they don't need that. Troy at Western Kentucky, 6 p.m. ESPN Plus. Tibbs, what are we going to see out of this game? Is it going to be great defense, or is it just going to be murderous offense?
I would like to think that the Troy defense keeps the Hilltoppers in check while Gunnar Watson and company that you don't believe in goes to work and finds the end zone several times. But I just don't know. I mean, I think this is a good road game for the Trojans, but it's a game that I think is very winnable for them. I think that the defense just has to really play within themselves and be able to make the key stops. I mean, I know that's kind of cliche coach talk, but I think that's never truer than ever in this game.
Yeah, you really got cliche city there, but you're absolutely right. You know, here's the thing. Austin Reed, quarterback for the Hilltoppers, 1,200 yards and 14 TDs already. They annihilated FIU 73-0. That should be illegal. Somebody should be in jail for that. Shane, what do you see from this game?
I honestly have no clue how it's going to go, but I see it as a big game for Troy, a big game for the SunBelt, because Western Kentucky looks pretty good so far. Troy has too. I think, Troy has something to prove here, and can make up for that devastating loss at App State maybe by getting a good win this time.
I feel the same way about this game as I did about Southern Miss versus Tulane. I felt like Southern Miss was going to get outclassed by Tulane, and I was wrong. So I could be very wrong about my feelings with Troy versus Western Kentucky. Western Kentucky is a 6-point favorite. Personally, I think I take Western Kentucky to win that game outright. But man, I was so wrong about Southern Miss, who, by the way, is taking the week off. This can go either way. And that concludes Second and Short.
And now it's time for plugs, promos, and parting shots. Jeremy, fire
Oh,
up.
I get to go first for that? Okay, I would love to. All right, so there's sort of a thing going on at Arkansas State where the Student Association is trying to drum up a sing-along song for the fans to sing, something that everybody like in the third quarter can get up and start singing to. The words would be up on the Jumbotron. And they've picked 4 songs, and one of them's like Hungry Like the Wolf, and the other one's a Black Keys song. And then you've got a Garth Brooks song, which I cannot stand, Friends in Low Places. It's killing me. So I've come up with an alternative, guys. And I want you to support this. Maybe not with your words, but maybe in your hearts. Instead of any of those songs, we sing Nights in White Satin. Just the whole thing. And then, that poem that drops at the end of Nights in White Satin, if you listen to the whole thing, Butch Jones comes out center field with a microphone and does a dramatic reading of the poem. Would that not freak out the opponent? Would you not, if you saw that, witness that, wouldn't you think you had joined a cult? You'd want to run screaming. You wouldn't want to play football. This is genius on my part, and I want you guys to acknowledge it as such.
You know how everybody got mad at Shane Beamer for trying to run people off the field?
Yeah.
nobody would be upset with the visiting coaches in Jonesboro if they were doing that in that case. They'd all be on their side.
Okay.
If they're screaming at Butch to get off the field, I think we'll all be in agreement.
All right. Well, fine. Then my plug is readhellraiser.com, and you can enjoy my penetrating analysis there.
Shane, what do you have?
Do a quick plug. Website is coming slower than we anticipated, but there's going to be a SunBelt Extra website from the DNR, the Daily News Record. Go to dnronline.com now, and you can get signed up for the newsletter. Get those stories in there every day, or in your inbox every week, and then I'll direct you to the website when it's ready to go. But
now, will we be receiving Shane Melton scoops from the newsletter?
Yes, and people who like this podcast will like the website. I can promise you that.
All right, Shane Mettlen scoops on the newsletter. I'm all in for it.
Does that mean we have to start writing also, Shane?
If you want, we can put you to work.
I got to break out the typewriter. Warhawk Report, fresh back from Monroe and watching the Warhawks go 1-0 in SunBelt Conference play. It's an exciting time on the Bayou. AD search is well underway. We'll be having some inside information on that. Meeting with President Dr. Ron Berry later this week for a subscriber exclusive.
Ooh.
And just looking forward to another fun-filled week of SunBelt Conference football.
I think that wraps it up beautifully, Tibbs. Very poetic. Almost as poetic as Knights and Whites had.
For the winners of the Arkansas State ULM game, this is Dusty Thibodeaux, Warhawk Report. Loser of the Arkansas State ULM game is Jeremy Harper of Hellraiser.
Okay.
And mediary of all that is fighting amongst the Funbelt podcast staff is Shane Melton of the Daily News Record. And we'll see you again next week.